we're more connected than we've ever been before, but we're more disconnected than we've ever been before, right? And if AI is going to take over my industry, then I need to start planning. If I'm in an industry where AI is going to enhance my job and my role, how can I start embracing it? How can I start embracing it earlier, being one of the early adopters?
But that's what makes these conversations much more worthwhile, right? Because we prepare to have these conversations. We want to make sure they're authentic, they're unique, and we stretch these ideas of what the human experience could look like.
Like I tell everybody, as we get older, don't get old. Get older, but don't get old. You don't want to be that person like, oh my God, this technology is running away from me. So in storytelling is where you find the uniqueness. Storytelling is where you find the humanity. Data, right? Data can give us numbers, right? But stories give us the truth.
We just wrapped up a conversation with Dr. Will Moreland where we talked about the civility advantage and how that framework is building a much more human-centered workplace and community. Enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Future Human Experience. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez. I am so excited for this episode. I have a fellow friend, a fellow speaker, a thought leader, and author, Dr. Will Moreland. Welcome to the Future Human Experience.
Eric, thank you so much, man. I've been super excited about having this conversation with you, so I'm ready, man.
Oh my God. Well, so we've known each other for years, over a decade now, right? I think we met each other at a very small event in corporate America where I was emceeing. We were going to have this keynote speaker who was amazing. Dr. Will Moreland comes in, and you were just so dynamic with maybe 70 of us that were in the room maybe that day. But to this day, I've just continued to see your work and your content, how you're building a much more human-centered future. And that's where I was like, oh my God, well, we need to have this conversation. But before we get started, I want to make sure we recognize the books that you've been putting. You are a best-selling author. You have more than a dozen books out there. But the most recent ones, Master the Mic, The $1 Million Speaker. These are all been important for us in the speaking industry. But also more important, Living from Your Core, which is your most recent book.
That's the most recent one, man. Yeah. And so thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And so, Will, tell us a little bit more about your journey into having these conversations around civility, building these systems, not only in our workplace, but in our communities. What inspired you to kind of dive into this space that you're helping all of us in this 21st century?
Yeah, so I was very blessed to be raised by who I consider a civility champion, my grandmother. And my grandma was always involved in the community. Now, as a little kid, I didn't understand it. I just thought she was always running errands, helping people and things like that. But as I gotten older, I just realized that civility and being kind to your neighbor is in my DNA. I've watched my grandmother do it for years, and that was the legacy that she left me. And then I had the opportunity to join the United States military. And in joining the Army, I got stationed in Germany, and that put me right smack dab in the heart of Europe, which allowed me to really travel literally all around Europe and meet people from different places. Growing up, I was very sheltered, just in my neighborhood, my community. Everybody looked like me, talked like me, danced like me. But when I went overseas, I found out how small the world really was, and how many common things that we have with each other.
Yeah. And so that inspired you now today to lead in these conversations. Share with us a little bit more, Dr. Will, in this space that technology is starting to become so prevalent in our workplace and our communities, where it seems that we've like automated, or we want to predict every single little thing. You're calling for something a little bit different. You're calling for, no, now today is that human connection is important. Tell us a little bit more about how you're helping organizations. What tips do you have today for leaders that are just overwhelmed by this automation momentum, but that still need that human connection, that importance of the human connection in the workplace or in our communities?
Oh, great question. So I say it like this: we're more connected than we've ever been before, but we're more disconnected than we've ever been before, right? And so we're all behind our phones, we're all behind our screens. And so what I've been screaming from the rooftop is that we got to get out and touch each other. We got to get out and communicate with each other face to face. And so I've been able to go literally all around the world and talk about this message of civility. And for me, civility is just the intentional respect for humankind. And so when I use the word intentional, that means you got to put down the phone. Yeah. That means you got to come out from beyond the screen and talk to people. I don't know how many times I've been at a restaurant and I'll observe families sitting at a restaurant and everybody's on their phone, right? I'll go, even in my house during dinner time, it's no cell phones, right? And my son, he acts like he's going to die if he's away from his phone for, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But I realize that that's our superpower, connectivity, right? It's our superpower. And so I never want anybody to lose that, the ability to conversate, because here's what happens when we don't conversate. You're left with assumptions. And I'll share this story with you. I was in Dubai and I was sitting in a Starbucks over in Dubai. And I saw these two women and they were sitting at the table and I had all these questions in my brain. And the questions were mixed with fear because I said, man, I don't know if I go talk to them. Will they be offended? I don't know. I'm over here in Dubai. I just was watching CNN. They told me if I talk to anybody over here, I'm going to get killed. All that kind of stuff, right? But then I mustered up the courage. And this is what I summons everybody to do. Muster up the courage to have the conversation. And I went over to these two ladies and I said, excuse me, my name is Will. I'm visiting from America and I have some questions. Can I ask a few questions? And they said, sure, you can sit down. Wow. And so I sat down and I began to ask them. One of them had on a hijab. And so I asked her about the hijab. I didn't know anything about it. Why are you wearing one? The other lady didn't have on one. One lady had a red dot in her forehead. I didn't know what the red dot meant. And what happened, Eric, was because I sat down and I had this 45-minute conversation, I didn't leave with assumptions. I left with truth. And when we don't have conversations, when we don't ask questions, we are left with assumptions. And you know what they say about what happens when you assume, right? Yes. And so for me, I've always made that a practice. I'll be sitting down with my wife and she'll say something like, oh, I wonder about that. And I was like, we don't have to wonder. We can just go ask him, excuse me, sir, what is this shirt that you have on? What does that mean? Right. Yeah. And so I'm always practicing it. My kids, they'll be like, I wonder what. I'm like, we don't have to wonder. We can just go ask. Yeah. And people always say this, but Dr. Will, what if somebody doesn't answer you? Or what if they're mean to you? And I said, well, that's a possibility. But in my experience, there's more kind people than evil people in the world.
Absolutely. Well, that reminds me of, as we're entering this era of digital tools and digital technologies, we like to think that if we just Google something, that will give us the answer. But what you're also recommending to us is that, yes, that is partially part of the truth of the experience, but that human experience is much more thought-provoking. That human experience is much more of a premium experience that we all need to live through today.
So I've been telling people that the way you should think about AI is this. AI is not here to replace you. It's here to enhance you. Yeah. So for me, I'm getting ready to travel to Texas. One of the things that I did was I went to ChatGPT and said, hey, I'm headed to Texas. Give me some areas that I should go visit. Give me some museums that I should go visit so I can have that human connection, that I'm not just sitting in my hotel room on my cell phone, right? And so for me, we're in this amazing time. This is the best that humanity has ever been. We have the best technology that we've ever experienced. And so what can we do with that? We can make this connection so much better. Here we are right now using this connection to get this technology, to get this conversation out to the world. This wasn't possible 25, 30 years ago. Yeah. And so how can we use this to enhance our life and not replace people in our life?
I love that, Will. And it reminds me too about why we have this podcast. We're now 5 seasons in. We're part of season 5. When we first thought about this idea of the podcast, we said, well, there's a lot of podcasts out there, which I love, and I'm subscribed to a lot of them. But how can we just be a little bit different? Yeah. And what came up was like, well, why don't we do this in person, right? If we really want to be thoughtful about building the human experience, how do we role model that in having these conversations? So that has put us in the situation that, yes, our timing, our schedules need to make it work, but that's what makes these conversations much more worthwhile, right? Because we prepare to have these conversations. We want to make sure they're authentic, they're unique, And we stretch these ideas of what the human experience could look like.
And I'll be honest with you, the energy behind a live conversation, right? I know even with, if you're doing it on Riverdale or, it's still live, but this right here, when we walked and saw each other, that embrace, you don't get that on Zoom, right? You don't get that on StreamYard. My wife asked me this morning or the other day when she was looking at my schedule, she's like, oh, that's a live you have that you're going in? Because, she's usually me sitting behind the Zoom screen, and I didn't realize that it was going to be live. And so I really got excited because the energy around getting dressed, about the drive, it gave me opportunity to think about what I wanted to talk about when I got here. And so I love this platform that you created, man. I'm so very appreciative, man.
Thank you, Will. And so tell us a little bit more about the other part too that I thought was going to be interesting for us to talk about is that we've also made Arizona our home over the last decade or so, right? Since we've gotten to know each other. And you have, I would say, not only embraced the energy of Arizona, but I think you role model it in the work that you get to do on preparing these blueprints of what the future could look like, either in the workplace or in communities for thousands of people all over the world. Tell us a little bit more, Will, about that journey of not only just being here in Arizona, but what gets you so excited about what the future could be? Because what you've learned about someone that came from the outside of Arizona into making this our home now.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been here now for 15 years, and we are my wife and I originally both from California, but prior to living here, as I said, we lived in Germany for 15 years. Yeah. And so when it came time to move back to the United States, we didn't really want to go back to California, but the only places that we really knew living-wise was California and Germany. But we were on a flight in 2008. We were on a flight from Germany to California. And I'll never forget the pilot. He says, if you look to the right, you'll see the Grand Canyon. And in that moment, something just spoke to my spirit and said, this is going to be your home.
Wow.
And when I got off the airplane, we got in our rental car and I talked to my wife. And I said, did you hear when the pilot said, there's the Grand Canyon? And she said, yeah. She says, I think we're going to move to Arizona. Literally, this was in 2008. And so when we finally decided we were going to transition back to the United States in 2010, Arizona was home. And as I was sharing with you off camera, it's been one of the biggest blessings of my life because we didn't really research in depth Arizona. And so we didn't have all the nuances of how amazing Arizona was. We've just been discovering it over time. And just the amazing people like meeting you and so many others. We talked about when you had Monica on the show and so many other great people in Arizona. I just felt that this was going to be our land of milk and honey. And it certainly has been. I've been able to build a business literally from the ground up, right? To have one of the top consulting companies in the nation and to build one of the top speaking brands in the nation, all from Arizona and the support that I've gotten here. I know a lot of times people say you don't get support in your own hometown, but that hasn't been my story. That hasn't been my story. I've had fantastic opportunities here. I've met amazing people, and Arizona's home for us, man. Awesome. It's home for us. And when you talk about it being a blueprint, I said this years ago, and I probably didn't know what I was saying, but I really do believe that Arizona is the blueprint for the rest of the world and the rest, especially the United States, of how you deal with different diverse communities, how you deal with technology. We're now becoming one of the technology hubs here. So we've been able to see Silicon Valley. We've seen some of the mistakes that they've made. We've seen some of the mistakes of other states. And I really do believe that we have the formula here in Arizona.
That is awesome. Well, one of the things that, already our audience can already experience, you're a fantastic storyteller. Yeah. And one of the things that I love when I've gone into your content, seeing you speak at events with thousands of people, is that you make sure the stories go beyond the statistics, right? And today we're in this era that we want to measure every single little thing. We can measure this, we can measure performance there, we can measure this, there, and that, and we try to tell a story from that perspective. Tell us a little bit more about why is it important for us to embrace these storytelling skill sets in this era that we can measure absolutely everything.
Yeah, so in storytelling is where you find the uniqueness. Storytelling is where you find the humanity. Data, right? Data can give us numbers, right? But stories give us the truth. One of the stories I always tell, or one of the examples that I always use, is as leaders, when we're dealing with our employees, you may have an employee that, let's say, is late. The data shows that over the last 3 weeks, he's been late 5 or 6 times. That's what the data says. Right. The analytics says if you have an individual like this, that individual should be put on, suspension or something like that, or should even probably be fired. But if you take the time to find out the story of why he is late, and then he tells you, I didn't want to share this with you, but our only car has been broke down. We've been trying to figure out how to get the kids to daycare. I'm riding on the bus. My wife is getting carpooled, and it's just been a real struggle for me to get here at 8 o'clock. That story now gives you humanity. It now gives you more in depth around the situation than just he's late 6 times, right? Now with that information of the story, as a leader, I can inject civility. I can inject humanity and say, Eric, I know you're supposed to be here at 8. You just told me you're catching a bus. If we shifted your schedule to 9:30, would that help you? Would that work for you? Oh my God, that would be amazing. Now, as a leader, if you just did that for Eric, how do you think Eric now is going to show up for work?
Oh man, I'm going to perform twice as better.
Because before getting there at 8:15, he's under anxiety. He's now worried about if he's going to get fired. He's trying to sneak in, to get to his desk. But now with that room of 9:30, he's now a different employee. I guarantee you, Eric's going to be a more productive employee. And a more productive employee is a more profitable employee.
I love that. So share with us then now, we also in this era, we're living in this era of constant change. AI has now become part of these headlines. AI seems to be, it's also changing the way we work. There's these headlines of layoffs here, layoffs there. And even though we're in a very promising place here, there seems to be a lot of investment in certain places, but in some other places, probably not. Tell us today, what is your advice to leaders? Or what are your advice today to the workplace where people are navigating all these changes that seems that people are kind of what they call job hugging, which is like, no, don't take away my job. But then then that brings also anxiety, brings the stress. Is there a possibility that even though all this change is happening, it's not happening to us, but it could happen for us? Share with us a little bit more about how you're helping those organizations do those.
Well, that's what history has told us, right? We've been here before. Change is not anything new. The only constant in life is change. So change is not new. So what I've been doing personally and what I've been doing with the leaders that I've worked with is studying change. What has happened? So what happened when we went from humans working in the farm fields to tractors? We've been here before. What happened when we went from people working at the telephone company, when we had operators, when we used to dial 0 and talk to the operator, to now it went automation? We've been here before. What happened when we went from the horse and buggy to the cars? Like when Ford created the assembly line, do you know when he created the assembly line, a day before, somebody just bought 500 horses and said, I'm going into the horse and carriage business, right? And so they had to figure it out. If you're an employee right now, what I would say to you is ask yourself the tough questions. Don't put your head in the sand and ignore it, because there are some fads, but AI is not a fad, right? AI is here to stay. So I would start asking myself, how is AI going to impact me personally? Am I in an industry that AI is going to take over? And if AI is going to take over my industry, then I need to start planning. If I'm in an industry where AI is going to enhance my job and my role, how can I start embracing it? How can I start embracing it earlier, being one of the early adopters? I would be watching everything on AI right now, and then going to my boss and saying, hey, you know what? I learned this about AI. I would love to share it with my other colleagues. That makes you a game changer in the office. That makes you indisposable, right? Make yourself valuable in this AI world. And so two things here. If AI is going to disrupt your industry, okay, we've been here before. You'll be okay, right? You're a genius. You're brilliant. You're bright. You'll figure it out. If it's going to enhance your industry, how can you embrace it, and how can you make it better for everybody involved?
I love that. You're telling people not only go and learn about it, but more importantly, the best way you can learn about it is with sharing it with others, right? Not just get the knowledge and keep it to yourself, because you're going to be the one that avoids disruption.
When you teach, you learn.
Yes,
when
sir.
you teach, you empower. And so it's not about, we're at such a special time in the world, because what AI has done has literally even the playing field. And why I say that is, no one knows about AI. No one knows fully about all its capabilities. So we're all of us are on the ground level. So if you embrace it, like there's people that are fighting against it and they're resisting it. But if you're one of the early adopters to say, you know what, I'm going to embrace it. It's just like, I'm remembering, we're old enough now that we remember when the internet came about. I remember when emails, you remember when people said, oh, I'm not using that email stuff. I remember when people were saying, I'm not getting rid of my house phone. What if the cell phone doesn't work? If you have an emergency, now how many people have house phones, right? So we've seen this before. The issue is that it's happening a lot faster.
Yes.
With the phone, with TV, they used to think that the TV was evil, right? They used to think that electricity was evil. They thought it was evil spirit. So we've seen change happen. The interesting thing is now we've just never seen, I always tell my clients that today, AI is the worst that it's ever going to be. Tomorrow it's going to be better.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, it's going to be better. So like I tell everybody, as we get older, don't get old. Get older, but don't get old. You don't want to be that person like, oh my God, this technology is running away from me. I have a teenage son, so I'm asking him, what are you doing? Man, I saw you do something on your YouTube page. How are you doing that? And be okay with that, right? Be okay with that. Oh, Dad, you're so old. Let me show you how to do that. But I'm always a learner. So put me in the classroom. Put me in the classroom so I can learn.
Oh my God. Dr. Well, that's a great example about not only the importance about being a learner, but being a lifelong learner. And one of the things that you've inspired not only me, but again, thousands of people all over the world, is bringing a framework to life in your talks and how you work with companies, organizations. Tell us a little bit more about the framework and the importance of implementing a framework like that today in 2025.
Yeah, so I've been researching this whole idea and philosophy around civility for a decade plus now. And when I first started out, it was very interesting because people thought it was this kumbaya, right? Just come hug each other and just be nice and play in the sandbox nice. But what I've been able to do with what I call the civility advantage is show corporations and show leaders how the civility framework is really profitability. Because as I said earlier, when your employees feel good about themselves, number one, when they feel good about the place that they're coming, those two things drive productivity. I always say to leaders, I say, this is how you know if you have a good culture. It's the conversation that your employees are having in the mirror with themselves on Monday morning. Do they love coming to your place of work? Are they saying, here we go, if I could just get past? Are they counting each and every day? Oh, here's mundane Monday. Oh, tough it out Tuesday. Hump Wednesday. Trying to get through Thursday. Thank God it's Friday. You don't want that, right? And so what the framework does is it's built on 6 pillars. And we go into organizations and we teach them these 6 pillars. And what happens at the end of these 6 pillars, you're now a more profitable organization because you have people that want the organization to win. You have people that want the organization to succeed. As a leader, I know that you have KPIs, you have metrics, you have the board, you have you have your supervisor over you, right? And you're wondering, how can I motivate? How can I inspire? How can I get people to do the right thing when I'm not even there? That's the true mark of leadership. It's the civility framework, right? And so we've been teaching corporations how to lay this civility framework in their organizations. And we've been seeing the numbers skyrocket because once again, when employees feel good, profits are good.
I love that. And I think that's needed today more than ever in this era of constant disruption, access to new tools, employees feeling connected with their work, connected with their job, connected with their workplace, with the culture. Man, it makes a world of difference. Dr. Moreland, it's been a pleasure to have you. One of the things we like to do as we wrap up the episode is I ask our guests to come up with a surprise question. I'm really interested to hear your question because we met each other years ago when you were starting this work, and now to see you presenting in front of thousands of people and bringing your message to life. First, I just want to thank you for that. But two, more importantly, what question do you have for me today?
So I've been waiting for this. I've been so excited because, as you said, we met each other years ago, and I've been watching you, and I'm curious of how do you feel about the legacy that you're leaving, being a Hispanic man? How important is it for your image to be seen by thousands of young Hispanic boys and girls around the country?
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for that question. I'll be full. There's two ways that I want to answer your question. One, I was invited yesterday to share my journey in my son's classroom, and I was sharing my story. And there's two classes that I was sharing my story. So the first one didn't have my son, and I just flowed through it, and I was animated and I was engaging. It went great, right? These are 5th and 6th graders, and then it got to the class that my son was there, and I was telling the exact same stories, and I was getting choked up, right? Because I was thinking, like, he is seeing this for the first time, that I'm talking about our family. I'm talking about the importance of cultural engagement, change, how we see the world. And now I'm trying to see it through his eyes. And I was talking about how I wanted to build a more inclusive world before I had him. But I knew I was going to have him one day. I didn't know who he looked at, if it was a he or a she. I didn't know. I just knew that I was going to be a father one day, and I wanted to build a better world. And now I was sharing that in front of him. And so that really got me. And so I was one that I'm starting to see how they are starting to see the world through my eyes. And that just inspires me to keep going. But two, I think it's been those conversations I have off the stage, right? Like we spoke when I saw you in front of thousands of people at our SHRM event, was just a thank you, the gratitude to say, hey, wow, thank you for sharing your story about your grandmother. Thank you for sharing your story about that cross-cultural experience and looking at innovation through those lenses, because I've never seen it through that way. That also was very inspiring. And that was something that, again, I'm sure you've thought the same thing, or has happened to you, that you don't go in with that intention. You just go in there just to share your passion. But the effect that you get to make is something you don't predict, but that just inspires you and continues to keep you going. So,
wow, that's amazing, man. That, when I think about you and just watching your journey, I always say we need so many voices, right? Everybody's not going to connect with a Dr. Will, and so we need an Eric. Everybody's not going to resonate with Eric, so we need a Dr. Will. And so the more voices that we have out there, one of the things I always tell our speakers is that your message is someone's medicine.
I love that. With that, Dr. Will, how can people find you, connect with you? Please share with us.
Real simple. Go to @DrWillSpeaks on any social media platform. You can find me. I would love to hear about your journey and how you're implementing civility into your day-to-day living.
I love that. We'll have links to all of his social media on our show notes. Dr. Moreland, thank you again for being part of the Future Human Experience.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I'm inspired to hear that these conversations are resonating within our communities, our organizations, our companies, and our households all around the world. If you found this conversation to be valuable, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share it with someone else. I do believe that as the future gets much more digitized, it gives us an opportunity to be much more human as well. And these conversations are part of that journey. So if you're enjoying the content on this channel, please check out these videos. Thank you.